Looking to have an uninterrupted electricity and water supply from solar energy in the Gambia and beyond? Worry no more, because Solar Enterprise will provide you with the solutions at reasonable cost. We have experienced personnel who can install and advise you about your electricity and water supply with a warranty period. We have good quality solar products from North America and Europe. We provide services and sell products to individuals, organizations, institutions, private offices, communities, and government. These products are solar panels, batteries, charge controllers, inverters, water pump, water heaters, freezers, submersible pumps, and general solar accessories. Visit our stores at 48 Karaba Avenue and Brusubi Highway, or you can call us on 7657 479 980 8483 340 9400 or 635 9906.
Jamano Money Transfer Bureau de Change, your go-to option when it comes to money transfer. With Jamano, you can send money from anywhere in the world to your family and loved ones in the Gambia and be sure the funds will be delivered to them within the shortest time possible. For your convenience, funds sent through Jamano Money Transfer can be picked from all the banks and multiple other financial institutions, including Ajib Bank, Trust Bank, GT Bank, Mega Bank, Basic Bank, Reliance Financial Services, and Approved Services. Visit our head office at Brusubi opposite AfricMed next to Trust Bank Limited, or email us at info@jamanomt.com. You can as well call us on 310-3050 or 310-3051, or yet still 733-0688. Our opening hours are 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday to Saturday and 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Sunday. Jamano Money Transfer, your most trusted money transfer service where customer satisfaction is paramount. When you think of a simple, fast, and reliable money transfer, think Jamano Money Transfer.
Agada
Impeachment aganyani
albaka
mbaka important
yo nga transfer la sto
ya transfer la
ha code nyingi
okay for sana nsila ID soto
sa soto sorry agada
Impeachment bro
albaka
mbaka
bara alla service o tariya
bare
mo ki janna nun kunu bara tariya
janno mi yona forest de bureau Gambia tonkon na no mbali ya bere birin koyna fo kato
bari si kodo kino kato nim fo bolon labe
56 branches mola soto Gambia ja
ha
Gambia kono ani Gambia bantala bankol nko kodo kiya bere kodo sifa fo falindiro fo nyaadi lafta memmen na kodi to poto nin kodi maraw jannom number 1 ti nyonta andum fana nata anoda enterprise sotale wolam nyindi ko domorol fana kol fana be firale de dadi man domorol dil fana beteat Gambia dawda yalo ngam fa kendol sotale je
wo moyo diat
apelenta
baraka ni na lafta nyelan kendol e bina
yalo bu kanila ko la baraka ba
yalo ndel chosano lo
baraka.
Islamic microfinance is becoming an increasingly popular mechanism for poverty alleviation, especially for developing countries around the world. This microfinance service adheres to the principles of Islam as a form of social responsibility. Yona Islamic Microfinance is the Islamic microfinance of choice in the Gambia, trustworthy and reliable. At Yona Islamic Microfinance, we provide savings products, current accounts, financing products in conformity with Islam. In addition, Yona Islamic Microfinance also offers local and international remittances, takaful fund, management of zakat, management of awqaf, trading and investment, and building of strategic partnerships to bring financial services to the doorstep of the poor with donor projects, madrasas, youth organizations, women groups, and farmer organizations. Make a choice with Yona Islamic Microfinance today. For more information on Yona Islamic Microfinance, call 377-2151 or 9832-151 or visit Yona head office at Tipa Garage, Bakote, or visit any Yona branch located countrywide near you.
And welcome to the Brunch on Kerfatu Live. I am Lavin Cham. This is our weekly look at matters that dominates the news here in the Gambia over the last 7 days. And well, so aptly this week it is the draft constitution that has newly been released by government that suddenly dominates news in the media. Almost immediately after its release, the document has been greeted with controversy, with so many people observing that key elements of the original draft have either been deleted or some other things added. Well, controversy I said because that's how it looks like. Already the opposition United Democratic Party leader, Hussein Odabo, had said if the draft is changed by even a comma, they will not accept it. So many other independent analysts, Gambians, and of course non-Gambians, in fact interested in the documents, has raised concern about a lot of things that they believe are troubling. So that is why I brought here in the studio this afternoon lawyer Aziz Bensouda to help us make sense of the difference between the 2020 CRC draft and the 2024 draft, because in that way we will be able to make sense of whether or what the fate of the constitution may look like in the coming months. And in the coming months, because remember, even if it get passed in the National Assembly, it has to be put to a referendum at which 75% of Gambians must agree. So the layers are too many. Will this constitution in its present form have any chance to become the supreme law of the Gambia? We will find out in the coming days in commentaries and analysis in newspapers, but we will do ours right here. Bensouda, welcome to the program.
Thank you for inviting me. Good afternoon.
Good. So let's begin by how fundamental is the difference between this one and the last. The last one, of course, was defeated in the National Assembly, allegedly through the machinations of the ruling government at the time, because I saw a cabinet paper which said that the issue of third term at the time was discriminatory to the president, because it would have meant that 2020, when it come into force, it would have meant that would have been his first term. And the government was not happy in considering that as a first term. So their position was it would have been discriminatory to the president. Secondly, they also observed that the powers given to the National Assembly in the other draft, they didn't agree with that too. So they said then a new one will be brought, and it has just come. But like I said, it's been greeted with a lot of controversy. Let me begin by asking you, how fundamental are the changes between this and the 2021?
Thank you for that. So I've looked at the document for the past 3-4 days, just as most people.
Yes.
It's still very early. I have done my own review, and I hope and I expect many Gambians will also have a chance to.
Yeah, I've been through a dozen analyses so far.
Yes, it's early days, but this is the process that we have to go through. Constitutional building is almost you need an overwhelming consensus. It is not something that it should be controversial in its form, because we need the majority of Gambians to agree to
agree to it.
Yes. So in terms of how fundamental are the differences, perhaps we can ask that again at the end of the program.
Yeah. Okay.
Just from looking at the two documents, the first document, the first constitution, I think had this one has 5 less pages. Let's say that.
This one is 5 pages short of the other one.
It's shorter by 5 pages. Now, unfortunately, when this document was published, I saw it first in the Gambia Bar Association WhatsApp group. There was no memorandum or explanatory document supporting it. So we go back to 2020. After the CRC had done their work for, I think, about 3 years, they published they published 2 documents.
Okay.
They published the draft constitution and they published a report explaining the draft.
Okay.
Now that report was even longer than the draft.
Okay.
I think the draft was 170 something pages, but the report was 200 and something.
Pages. And that was needed to explain the whole process.
Yes, and it goes back to my first point. It is the constitution building process is a fundamental part of nation building. It only happens, at least for us, it only happens once a
lifetime.
Exactly. Yeah. So the document that all Gambians should agree to should be something that in 50 years' time, for example, it will be relevant, it will reflect our values, it will reflect our rules, our customs. It will be something that all Gambians look to resolve disputes and to plan ahead for the future. So that is why the CRC, their task was to draft a constitution. But in the explanatory agenda, in the explanatory note, they explained the process they had gone through, the public consultations, the national surveys.
Yes.
They wrote to all political parties, non-governmental organizations, religious communities, and asked for submissions. Then they went on the ground to do face-to-face interviews and ask different communities, different genders, tribes, etc., what their issues were, what they saw in themselves for Gambia.
Yeah, exactly.
On every, and there's 200 and something sections.
Yeah.
So on every issue, you must try to get consensus among Gambians so that when this is brought together in a document, it will be very non-controversial, and we will all feel that we have contributed our part to building the country.
Yes.
And this document reflects what we believe in ourselves today as Gambians and for the foreseeable future.
Exactly.
So I commend everyone to read the report of the CRC.
Yeah.
It is very useful, and the commissioners who were in the CRC. You have Honorable Justice Cherno Jallow, Awasise Sabali, Janet Sala, Lamin Kamara. These are among the top legal luminaries in Gambia. And it was necessary to bring people like this on board so that after they go through 3 years, we will have that trust that really Gambia got its best and brightest to
work on this,
and come back to us with a document that we would find easy to accept. And in fact, they published everyone that worked at the CRC, their administrative staff members, their support staff, even the cleaners and security guards.
We are all listed.
They listed them, they put their names. Because we need to know
who and who,
exactly,
how credible they were, the whole process.
Exactly. And particularly in 1994 to 1997, that constitution, we understand now that after there was a committee set up to review it, and it had gone to the military junta, they had made changes in the last minute.
Fundamentally.
And the CRC staff and commissioners decided that they would go through a very, very transparent process. So that if there was going to be a debate or national controversy, it would not be related to trust of the process or lack of transparency.
I see.
And on every issue that a change was suggested, they had explained what the dimension of the law was, why they thought there should be a change, what the people thought, how even the quality control mechanisms, how they monitored to make sure staff members that had gone to a particular community had come back and what they were reporting was true. They gave us quality assurance criteria. It was done very professionally. Now you come back and you ask, well, how fundamental are the changes here?
Exactly.
I would say the first fundamental change is that in 2020, the draft was rejected. I'm learning from you now some of the reasons why.
Yes.
The government promised they would bring a new draft. It's been 4 years. I would expect at the minimum they would tell us who worked on this draft, what was wrong at the time, why they felt it did not pass, why they're going to change the things they're going to change, and give us an explanation, and then present to us a document saying this is what we have changed. But in this case, there is no explanation at all. We have just received the document, and it's now very difficult. I mean, I saw you this morning and I said, oh, you're holding the draft.
Yeah.
When you look at the document, it's very difficult to see what is not there because certain things have been removed.
Exactly.
So some people will hold both documents and read it line by line. Luckily, as lawyers, we have tools to look at two documents and
straight away point out the difference.
Yes, and do a compare analysis, and that's what I have done. Okay. But over time, everyone will
be able
will find the issues, and then we will be able to ask ourselves whether it is a fundamental change or whether this is an improvement on 2020.
Yeah. But from the analysis I read, most people are critical and even condemning some of the changes. So let's hear from you. What sort of changes do you take away from this?
Well, it's a long document. We have 2 hours.
I know. We have 2 hours. Let's go through.
So we can go through it from the beginning.
Yeah, indeed.
Or you can tell me what you feel is an important issue, and then
I have had people talk about the term limit thing, but later I learned that in fact some of the things that have been removed, in fact, have far-reaching implications than even term limits, such as the power, how to call it, the accountability that this constitution provided in terms of the executive, the judiciary, and the National Assembly, and all other stuff. So let's go through and see. I think we will learn from some of the takeaways from the document.
Yes. But I'll do my best. So just a caveat, I will just keep it strictly to the document. I will not give you my opinions.
Okay, I have a few things that I can also ask. Let's go ahead. Yes.
All right. So in terms of the beginning of the document, you will recall there has been, particularly in cases, there has always been this discussion in the Gambia. How long can the police arrest an individual before presenting him to the courts? Currently, the law is 72 hours.
Yes, 72 hours is what is known.
Yes. Now, in the 2020 draft, after doing a review and consulting the country, they decided to reduce the time to 48 hours.
That will give, that protect the right of accused or the detained person.
Exactly.
Not so, 48 hours.
Exactly.
So that the police will have to charge or release the person within 48 hours.
Exactly.
So the 72 was seen to be too long.
Yes.
Again, this is in tandem with human rights, isn't it?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Now, in the 2024 draft, they have gone backwards. They have cancelled the 70. They have cancelled the 48 and gone back to
72 hours.
72 hours.
So that is a change. That means that the police can keep somebody to 72 hours, whereas the other constitution, the draft in 2020, wants to protect the liberty of the person who has been suspected of things. So that is important. That is a minus in terms of protection of liberty of citizens who might find themselves in trouble with the law.
Exactly. And Gambia has we have a history pre-2016. There were reasons why we received funding, and there was a lot of national interest to make amendments to the constitution. And one of them was that the Gambian feels that being held without charge for 72 hours is too long. We have a right to liberty, and that time limit should be reduced so that the police will be under pressure to charge or release. But it seems that in the 2024 draft, the government feels that the status quo should remain, and we are now going back from 48 hours to 72 hours.
So the government, in other words, feels that they should keep people long before they decide what to do with them.
Yes, and I go back to the main point. When we accept the constitution as people, we should not just look at the constraints we have today, the interests we have today, whether this 72 hours in 50 years it will be something we are proud of. And I don't think so. But that is the first change that I noticed as we are going through the document.
There are a whole lot of. Let's go.
Yes, and I will jump to the more fundamental ones.
Exactly.
But for me, the one change that tells us a lot about the thought process that went into these amendments is a part of the 2020 draft called, it's chapter 5. It was there. Now chapter 5 has been deleted totally.
A whole chapter has been removed.
A whole chapter has been removed.
Replaced with something, or just totally removed?
It has just been totally removed. And the title of chapter 5 is Leadership and Integrity.
Chapter 5 that has been removed was dealing with leadership and integrity.
Yes. And I will take some time to, it's very beautifully drafted. The language, in the 2020 draft report, they explained how after the public consultations, Gambians felt that poor governance was rampant, and it was one of the reasons why we are in the state we are today. And that for us to move forward as a country and to see a Gambia we all want, there needs to be public accountability, transparency, reduction in corruption, and certain standards of conduct that public officials should follow.
Yeah.
And people dealing with government should also follow. And it had and everything I will tell you now has been deleted.
So you mean all the issues dealt with, to provide good leadership, the whole chapter has been removed?
Yes. Yes.
And
that is why I'll throw it back to the government. I should not have been the first person to, if I am, to come on the TV and start talking about it. They should have come out, at least the Ministry of Justice should come out, or the Ministry of Information, to explain to people the reasoning behind it, so that suspicion can be reduced, controversy can be reduced, and we can understand in good faith why the government thinks.
There was a press release, a short a task statement that suggests that this document, how did they word it? It is inconsistent with the Gambia as a democratic state, so and so. It was a short statement that expressed that it came with. That, for all intents and purposes, is not enough, especially when a whole chapter dealing with how our leaders should conduct themselves is deleted. There should be a bigger explanation, a more clear explanation.
Yes, and so that it can be very clear to you. This is what the 2020 draft said. I'm just going to read. This was there before, now it's removed.
Yes.
Section 24(1). Cognizant of the fact that all sovereign authority emanates from the people, any authority, duty, or responsibility conferred or assigned to a public officer, whether under this constitution or on an act of the National Assembly, is. So it's basically saying power is in the people. This constitution recognizes that any responsibility given to a public officer comes from the people. Therefore, that authority should be considered a privilege and public trust, and must be exercised in a manner that is consistent with the principles of the Constitution, demonstrates respect for the people and the rule of law, brings honor to the nation and dignity to the office, and promotes confidence and respect and integrity of the office vested in the public officer. Why is that removed?
Well, if these things are so lofty that if you remove this, what do you replace it with? Impunity?
Yes. So, for example, there was a section in the same leadership and integrity. There is a section that deals with the conduct of office of public officers. A public officer shall behave, whether in private or public life, or in association with any person, in a manner that avoids conflict of interest, in a manner that compromises their public duty or personal interest, or brings their office into disrepute. They have removed that.
So anything that can bring a minister or some senior official in conflict of interest, they've removed that.
Yes.
So a minister who is, for example, minister for tourism can now buy a share or own a hotel or a lodge somewhere. Or a minister of health can now own private pharmacies and stuff like that, because the law that protects the conflict interest is gone.
Yes, so those are good examples. Basically, the 2020 Constitution had this section to prevent conflicts of interest, but that has been removed. There was a section on financial probity of public officers, meaning you have to be transparent in your finances. There was a section that says a gift to a public officer or a public official, a gift or donation shall be delivered to the state through the Anti-Corruption Commission. So there was an obligation that if you receive a gift, you have to give it to the Anti-Corruption Commission, who will deliver it to the government to prevent people giving gifts and donations and bribes. Essentially,
bribery and other things.
They have removed that.
So if that had stayed, for example, nobody can turn up now with 57 pickups and said, I'm donating it to the president.
Exactly.
You have to take it to the anti-corruption.
Exactly.
But they've removed that now. So anybody can come with anything and said, Mr. President, I have given this to you.
Exactly.
And he wouldn't be constrained by any law. He could just take it. More
Exactly. Then there's also the section on restrictions on public officers, that a full-time public officer shall not engage in other gainful employment unless they are allowed by an act of the National Assembly or express agreement of government. That has been removed.
So if you are in a public office or an office that has unique requirements, you should not be engaged in anything private.
Exactly.
They'll remove that law now.
Yes.
So anybody can engage in anything now. You will not be constrained by any law.
Well, that is what is sought. That is what they want to do in the new constitution.
That's what the new draft is seeking to do.
Yes. But in the 2020 draft, you can understand why these things were there.
Yeah, because people have seen it, how conflict of interest and stuff like that.
Exactly.
So they removed the whole chapter. That would have guided public officials how to conduct themselves in terms of avoiding bribes, in terms of conflict of interest, and generally good conduct.
Even Section 28, for people who are dealing with public officials or any organ of state, the 2020 draft imposed a duty to act honestly and transparently and fairly, to respect people and the rule of law, to maintain and uphold confidence and integrity of the relationship. Basically, if you are dealing with government, you have to conduct yourself in a manner that is consistent with honesty, transparency. That is also removed. The obligations of people when dealing with government.
So if I can go to any public official now when I'm looking for a contract and said, here is $500,000.
Exactly.
Because I'm not constrained by any law now.
That is one of the consequences.
That's one of the consequences.
So this chapter on leadership and integrity, it was aspirational. It wasn't even one can say mandatory. It was something that would guide the behavior of public officials and set the bar for the expectations of the public for public officials and for public contracts and so
at least its presence will be assuring and shows good governance.
So that has been
removed.
That has been removed.
Any other when you've taken away that have been removed?
I have 3-4 pages of things that are
let's move on.
I will
let's move on.
Yes. So, for example, freedom of assembly.
Freedom of assembly. Wow.
Under the draft on the fundamental human rights, there was a provision that said any Gambian or any person is entitled to mobilize, to assemble, basically to protest and present a petition to a public enterprise or public office.
Yes.
So in the current draft, they've changed the language. That you can mobilize and protest, not violently, but you cannot present a petition to a public office. And your right to assemble is subject to national security, other rules and so on. So they have restricted the freedom of assembly.
So fundamentally now we can gather protest, but we cannot write a petition and present it to a public official.
Maybe you can, but it's not protected under the Constitution.
It's not protected. It shows it's not. You can do it. If they wish, you will not do it.
Yes. Well, before you could say I cannot be stopped by any act or by any public official because it's protected by the Constitution.
Now that protection is gone.
It's gone. Yes.
And your assembly itself has to be subject to the approval of some security, authority.
Yes. So how I see it is that currently the situation that prevails is you write an application
to the police,
subject to the Inspector General of Police approval.
So they want that to continue.
They want that to continue. Whereas under the 2020 Constitution, they have given the draft. They have given a lot of explanation on what the Gambian people wanted, and the Gambian people really wanted not unrestricted,
more freedom of assembly.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
now there's a bit of a restriction in that. That would disappoint civic society activists who like to promptly protest against what they perceive to be unjust. So that is injustice. So that's going to be a restriction to their freedoms. Yes.
Yes. Then we go to the right to education.
Education?
Yes.
Okay.
The right to education, they have made a small change. Under the 2020 draft, basic and secondary education is free, compulsory, and available to all. Primary and secondary. Okay. Under this draft, they have removed secondary. So only basic education will be free and compulsory. So again, I think the government has to explain why they believe this is essential to remove. And
so let's go back. Under the 2020 drafts, which we must admit was inspired from wider consultation.
Yes.
It was established that every citizen has a right to education, secondary, tertiary,
primary and secondary.
Primary and secondary.
Free and compulsory.
Free and compulsory.
Yes.
But now
only basic.
Only basic. Secondary is removed.
They remove secondary.
So that means everybody must go to a basic school, basic education, has some basic education, which must be compulsory and free.
Yes.
But the same cannot be assured of secondary.
Yes. And this is because Gambians pay taxes. Education and access to education is difficult, and a young person who is not given by their country the minimum, which is to be educated, will not have as much opportunity, and so on. The consequences are obvious. So in the 2020 draft, it was determined that this is what Gambians want. They want the government to provide free education.
But in the current state of affairs, public secondary schools don't charge fees for tuition fees, etc. Maybe a few books. But does this mean that people must now pay whatever charge is levied at senior secondary schools, even if they are public?
So I'm not sure the situation now, whether it's compulsory. So currently,
I have people in public schools, but what they do is they buy additional books, stuff like that.
Yes, so
more or less.
So currently, maybe basic education is free. Maybe some secondary education is free.
Yeah.
The question is it protected in the Constitution? For example, if your child is not given access to school at the basic or secondary level, can you go to court, for example, and force the Ministry of Education to make available in your region a school for your child to go to? I'm not sure you can do that now. No. But in the 2020 Constitution, the draft, as I have read it, was going to guarantee to every Gambian child, as long as you are Gambian, you are of basic and you are at the right age, you are entitled to basic and secondary education. And even if your parents, for example, did not want to take you to or give you access to it, the law could still protect you and force your parents, because it is compulsory for every citizen.
I see.
So that is what was in the 2020 draft. But as it stands now, they have removed secondary from it. So meaning every citizen will go to basic education, but secondary education is neither guaranteed to be free or
whether available.
Exactly. So again, an explanation is needed as to why we are taking a step back from the ideal of 2020. Even 2020, we were going to have this, even if it's not possible.
Yeah,
but Gambian law, Gambian constitution was going to guarantee it. Why are we going back in 2024?
Interesting.
So yeah, so that's very interesting why it's removed.
Okay.
Then I'll jump to something I noted, but so I don't forget it. Local government.
Local government. Well, that has been a big issue in the country.
Exactly.
Continuing to be an problem in the country, yes.
Yes. So the system of local government we have now under the current constitution is that it establishes local government. Local governments, there's a principle of decentralization.
Yeah.
There's obviously many current issues relating to that and disputes.
The local governments felt that the central government is encouraging on their autonomy and not giving them freedom to exercise the autonomy that they have under the constitution. Yes, there's a need for more decentralization and devolution of powers.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in the 2020 draft, the draft did not touch or change the system of local government much.
Okay.
After consultation, I believe the outcome was, well, the laws are there. The constitution does maintain our system of decentralization.
Okay.
It's an issue of enforcing the law and implementation.
Okay.
So in 1997, we have autonomy of local government, decentralization. In the 2020, the CRC did not change that. In the draft of 2024, they have deleted our whole system of local government.
What?
The whole chapter dealing with local government
is deleted
and amended.
Oh,
so
amended.
They have deleted decentralization, the word decentralization. They have deleted the autonomy, financial autonomy of council. All the sections relating to local government, they have deleted.
Really?
Even the establishment of Alcalo and CEFO. Then they just have a short section that says there will be an act of the National Assembly that will now provide for elections of mayors and mayoresses. But basically, they're going to put local governments under central government and now remove the whole idea or expectation of or right to autonomy and decentralization. Now that is a big step back.
What could this mean now from what obtains now?
Yes.
Compared to what obtains now, what could this mean? They cannot have their independence in finance. They cannot have independent control over their finance. Or,
well, and this is another problem that you have in this draft, because I'm trying very hard not to be too legalistic.
Well, yeah, let's try to break down the jargons.
Yes. When you create a new law like a constitution, and you find people already living under an existing law, there are problems with imposing this new law and new changes on the people that you find. And therefore, as a draftsperson, as a person who is creating the law, you must be very careful and at least be very clear what the consequence of this law is going to be and whether it will work. So, for example, if people have voted and there is already a system of local governments who are autonomous, and you bring a new constitution in 2025, after you have gone through a referendum, and then now the new constitution doesn't have autonomy, does that mean administratively you're going to make changes in the councils? Does that mean the rights that the people had and they voted in 2018, those rights have disappeared? This document that they have provided doesn't explain this. It doesn't even have what we call a transitional provision. Say, for example, we are going to you are living in a house, right? Your house has windows, and you have a tap in your house with water, and these are two important features of your house. If someone took your windows or your tap, it would be inconvenient.
You handicap one way.
Yes. Now, if a law is passed that says, well, from now on, all houses in the Gambia will not have a tap with water, and everyone should go and take their water from outside.
Yeah.
And that law is passed.
Yeah.
But you already have your tap with water.
Yeah.
And somebody comes and says, well, I'm going to, what you're doing is illegal. But you say, well, when I put my tap in there, it was legal.
It was legal.
How do we deal with the conflict between the two situations? The new law should explain for Mr. Cham and people who already have taps, they're exempt, or I'm going to give them time, or this is the changes that are going to happen. So in the 2020 draft, it was very careful to go through all these transitional provisions that we call, and every time something is impacted, to explain what the consequence would be. So now you just delete the system of local government. What's going to happen to the 8 local governments that exist
already?
Yes. So
but it did say there's going to be an act of parliament.
Yes.
That is going to deal with it.
Yes. And until you pass that act, what happens?
Okay. A transitional period.
Yes. So for me, as a lawyer, it's not clear, and it's not how you would draft a law, because you would create a bit of chaos, and particularly a constitution. So that's very fundamental that they have.
One might suspect that the government, of course, not happy with the autonomy of the present councils, because we had a history of problems between them. Probably wants to, let's say, disempower them more and more, putting them under central control.
Well, I'll leave that to you.
That can only be the explanation. Because if the past draft give strong protections and independence, autonomy to the councils, and now you've seen that those have been deleted and said an act of parliament will deal with it. Okay, let's move on to the other one anyway.
So I'm just scrolling to the relevant portion to make it easy, because I want to just focus on those areas that are relevant.
Yeah.
So consumer protection in the 2020 draft.
Yes.
There was a provision.
I think there's a commission already established to look after that, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So. Sorry, let me just.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. We have ample time.
Yes. So in the 2020 draft, there was a very short section that said that all consumers have the right to goods and services of reasonable quality, to information necessary for them to gain full benefit of the goods and services, to protection of their health, safety, and economic interest, and to compensation for loss and injury arising from defects in goods and services. Now, we already have a law, a Consumer Protection Act.
Yes.
But I think the Gambian people wanted the Constitution to protect their rights as consumers.
I see.
Because, we go through this on a daily basis.
Every day, yeah.
You're buying or paying for goods and services that are of inferior quality, etc. And I think the expectation was that Gambians wanted protection at the constitutional level of these things that I've listed.
Yeah.
Now that is deleted.
Deleted? Yes. It was in the draft.
It was in the 2020 draft. Why it's deleted, it's something that's also very strange for me. I don't understand. And I think
so now that means people have little or no protection, in dealing with those kind of things, like the access to quality products or sitting. People have been a little bit robbed of power or whatever in that aspect, with the deletion completely of the consumer protection law.
Yes. So there is a consumer protection
commission, and also there's an action like commission. Yes.
But at a constitutional level, we Gambians had aspired to have consumer protection as part of our constitution. At that level,
yes.
As our values and ethos as Gambians, consumer protection, just like other rights you have.
Yeah, yes.
We are citizens, but we are consumers.
Exactly.
And we wanted to have that protection at the constitutional level. So it could be they think it's not necessary at the constitutional level. They just want it, but it's been removed. Another thing is state of public emergencies.
Okay.
Now you will remember in 2017.
Yes.
Yes, when there was the impasse.
Yes.
The National Assembly passed a resolution that Gambia is in a state of public emergency.
Yes.
And that allows the president.
They wanted to extend his term.
Exactly.
Yes.
So whenever there's a state of public emergency because of war and other things, the president is given.
Even in terms of election, they can postpone elections.
Exactly. Yes. Now there is a process. When the state of public emergency exists, there's a process for how you can extend it, etc.
Okay.
But the law allows the Supreme Court. Someone can go to the Supreme Court to challenge
it.
The state of public emergency or the extension.
Okay.
That has been removed. The power of the Supreme Court to check the power of the executive
has been removed.
It has been removed.
So even if right now, if the occasion arises and the government or the president declared a state of emergency and said, okay, we have an emergency, we have to postpone the elections, the Supreme Court has no power now to counter-check that.
That's what they want. So if this draft passes...
If this draft passes now, the Supreme Court will now have no power, to counter-check what the executive feel is an emergency.
Exactly.
So that's a minus in terms of the powers of even the judiciary.
Yes. Now, while we're on the judiciary, I'll just jump ahead, which is I find very interesting.
Yeah.
So currently, under the current law, the judiciary is autonomous when it comes to finances. The judiciary submits through the judicial secretary.
Yeah.
Its finances, and budget to Parliament.
To Parliament.
Under the draft 2024 Constitution.
Yeah.
The judiciary will now submit it to the president, and it is the president that will submit it to Parliament.
Oh, before the Chief Justice and his people can submit their budget proposals to Assembly direct.
Yes.
But under this new draft, if passed, the Chief Justice and his people will have to take it to the president first.
Yes.
So what powers or what has been reduced or deleted in the powers of the judiciary in this case. They are subject to control by the executive.
Or influence. So if the judiciary submits to Parliament, the judiciary can defend their budget.
Defend it in Parliament directly.
And because the judiciary is the third arm, equal branch of government. It is expected that they will then be able to be free to prepare their budget recommendations and defend those budget recommendations to the House of the People. But to submit it to the President, who doesn't have the power to amend it, but the President will put his own recommendations and suggestions and then submit it to Parliament.
So he can influence, he can have influence.
Certainly influence, yes.
And that will defeat the purpose of the, separation of powers.
Yeah, so fundamentally, this draft, it undermines the separation of powers. And again, the government has to explain why they believe that it's necessary.
That the judiciary budget has to go to the President first, before the National Assembly.
Exactly. Now
that will be a point of concern for Chief Justice Jallo and his people.
Well, I'll leave that to...
Of course.
Yes. And also under the present draft, in 2020, there were several provisions that a minister, a president should disclose their assets to the Anti-Corruption Commission before coming to office, and should disclose after they leave office. After they leave office, yes.
That's what was in the draft.
2020. Yes.
They should declare assets they have assuming office and after they've left.
Yes.
So people can know whether what they have got is commensurate to what they might have earned.
Exactly. And you can do a measurement to see, well, if you declared $1 million here, now you have 10
Now you have 10 million.
Something has
and your
happened.
salary doesn't cannot account for all this.
Exactly. Now, interestingly, in the 2024 draft, the vice president and ministers can declare their assets, but their spouses cannot. They've removed that.
Oh,
the obligation for the
vice president and ministers.
Yes.
Can declare their assets to the anti-corruption after they've served.
No.
Or before they serve.
Before.
And after.
Yes. Maybe I don't want to confuse the.
Okay.
Maybe we stick to the judiciary and then I'll come back. Yes.
Okay. All right.
So what they have done, they have now made it an obligation on judges to disclose their assets to the Anti-Corruption Commission before they become judges, and after their tenure of office as judges, to disclose their assets again to the Anti-Corruption Commission.
That is what this new draft is calling for.
Yes.
But under the past draft, what was there?
That wasn't there.
So a judge doesn't have to declare his or her assets before and after taking office.
Currently.
Yes.
But
now they are asking that judges should declare their assets before and after holding office.
Yes. And also if they sell assets, they have to transfer those assets to a trust. If they want to transfer assets, so for example, if they want to buy something,
if they want to buy land for themselves,
they have to transfer it to a trust.
A trust.
Yeah. So one can say there's more transparency in the
they want to subject the judges to more ethical behavior.
Yes, financial practice. Yes. So and
so that they don't get corrupted.
Yes.
So that their finance will be transparent. Their financial thing will be transparent. Whatever they own should be transparent.
Exactly.
Okay. Well,
so that is
one would say that is a plus.
That is a plus.
Yeah, that is positive. I mean, but if you do this for judges, what about ministers and presidents?
So interesting that you ask this.
Yeah.
For ministers, it is the reverse.
It's the reverse.
In 2020, the Constitution, the draft required that ministers and their spouses should declare their assets to the Anti-Corruption Commission. In 2024, they've removed the obligation for spouses to declare their assets.
Okay, in 2020, if I become Minister of Information,
yes,
I should declare what I own and what my wife owns or my son owns.
Yes, but remember, in 2020, the draft did not pass.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But that was supposed
to be it.
Exactly.
So, now they remove that.
Yes.
So the minister's assets he can declare, but what his son might have owned as we know in Africa, I can buy something and said it is in the name of Yaya Cham when actually it's mine.
Yes.
So now they exempted the spouses will not have to come and declare what they own.
Exactly.
So ministers or anybody can get things, ill-gotten things, and put them the names of their spouses, and now nobody cares now because there's no law which can prod them.
Exactly.
That's me.
Exactly. But also another thing is, on the 2020 draft, when a minister left office, they should declare their assets to the Anti-Corruption Commission, and their spouse should also declare their assets to the Anti-Corruption Commission. They have removed that again. So the minister does not have to declare, or the spouse declare.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
I see.
So why remove that also is something that it's really worth.
So it's like I mean, releasing or freeing the ministers from more accountability mechanisms.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
So
okay.
which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
But
with all this need and outcry for accountability, if you remove the, so what will then be the powers of the anti-corruption commission in this case? If people who are supposed to, declare things before them are all exempted under this new law now.
So what I find in the new constitution, the new 2024 draft, is that the powers of the Anti-Corruption Commission has been reduced quite significantly, and you will see that as we continue the discussion. But suddenly it's you can see that most obligations to report to the Anti-Corruption Commission have been tampered with a little bit. So judges are put under more transparency and scrutiny. Ministers, they actively remove the obligation to report to the Anti-Corruption Commission your assets after you leave office. So it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. Then there's also something else. There's this body called the Judicial Services Commission.
Yes, the body they said would review the controversial judicial officer remuneration bill. Says they will review and make recommendations to the president as to how judges should be paid or what sort of benefits. The Judicial Service Commission, yes.
So the Judicial Service Commission is responsible for appointment of judges in consultation with the president, etc. Now, under the 2020 draft, it states who will be the members of this Judicial Services Commission. Typically, it's Chief Justice, judges of the Superior Courts, representatives of the Gambia Bar Association, etc., etc. Under the 2024 draft, they have changed the requirements. Yes. Now it will be the Chief Justice, the Attorney General, a judge of the Court of Appeal, it's fine, a judge of the High Court, the most senior Sharia judge, and then now a magistrate, a CFO, the IGP, and the Gambia Bar Association.
Okay.
So while this may not mean much to the layman, if you ask a lawyer, they will say, well, why the body that determines the appointment of judges, they should always be people with very high legal qualifications, top experience in the country, and the wisdom that comes with that role.
Yeah.
But what will a CFO? How is that relevant?
A CFO certainly.
The IGP, how is that
make
relevant?
The cut.
Yes.
IGP, you can arguably maybe, but even that, and then of course, what else? Who is maybe a magistrate will do?
Yes, chairperson of the Public Services Commission. So the judiciary is supposed to be independent.
Yeah.
It's an equal branch of government.
Absolutely.
The more you subject appointment of judges to people in the employment of government, you are moving the judiciary from equal to the executive to below the executive. Because now to terminate a judge, the IGP works for the government, the CFO works for the government, the chairperson of the Public Service Commission works for the government. Two persons in public service affairs work for the government. So it is arguably taking away the separation of powers and undermining the independence of the judiciary with this proposed draft, which is quite a dangerous situation.
I see.
And I wouldn't expect that in 2024, with how Gambia was lauded for the steps we had taken for democracy, that the government would propose
this kind of law.
Is very, very unusual. Very unusual.
I see. Interesting.
But on the judiciary, that's the main change. So then we go to politics now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What did you say?
So in for when a candidate wants to be nominated for president, you have to. There are several criteria for qualification. tax certificate,
Tax clearance, yes.
exactly, being a citizen of the Gambia, certain age, etc. Under the 2020 draft, the nominees for presidential candidates were supposed to submit a declaration of their assets to the Anti-Corruption Commission.
Okay.
So that the Anti-Corruption Commission would have the resources to investigate and so on.
Yeah.
They have removed that.
So they've removed that?
Yes. So now you only submit your declaration of assets to the IEC, which is the normal, which is currently
which used to be done.
Yes.
But anti-corruption was meant to make it more efficient so that they can investigate and stuff like that.
More than more efficient, it was to be a higher level of transparency. That if you are presenting yourself to the Gambian people, you should have no fear of presenting your assets to the Anti-Corruption Commission.
I see. So now aspirants for the presidency don't have to declare their assets to the anti-corruption. It's only the normal go to IEC, which doesn't have anyway even the wherewithal to even check.
Exactly. Particularly during an election period, we all know it's quite there's a tight timelines. The procedure is very fast.
So the wishes of the Gambian people to scrutinize, their presidential aspirants more by subjecting them to appear or to submit, their assets to the anti-corruption commission is been removed now from what has been what is called in this constitution.
Exactly.
Wow.
Then to political parties.
Yeah, political parties.
One of the key conflicts that currently exist is transparency of political parties currently in Gambia. We have it in the elections bill that hasn't yet been passed, etc. Where do political parties get their money from? The obligation to publicly present their audited accounts. So in 2020, the draft constitution created the obligation for political parties to conduct themselves in a way that was consistent with the values of the constitution. They have removed that. In 2020, the draft required that political parties declare the sources of revenue. They have removed that. In 2020, the draft required that political parties publish their audited accounts. They have removed
that all.
In 2020, the draft prohibited political parties from receiving donations from non-Gambian citizens or people or companies outside Gambia. They have removed that.
So political parties now can have funding from any source. Even a crooked or a terrorist organization can donate to political parties whose leaders may end up becoming president, and there is no law down now to check them now.
Exactly.
Basically.
Exactly. So
wow.
So this is one of the problems we have currently. The 2020 draft wanted to solve that problem, so political parties can become more transparent and also conduct themselves in a way that was democratic. They have removed that. So again, in my view, we are taking a step. Back.
Yeah, because political parties can get money from inducements from anybody now. There's no law now that can protect the people from letting that happening.
Exactly. So still on politics, the qualifications to run for president. They have made amendments to the qualification to run for president.
Interesting. I think under the existing laws, you have to have a secondary education. You have to be a Gambian citizen.
Yes, and many other things. Yes, above the age of 30. And so on. So in 2020, they introduced that you had to be resident in the Gambia for 3 years.
For 3 years. Okay.
They have removed that.
They've removed that.
Yes.
So anybody, I can come from United Kingdom. Last week and be elected this week.
Yes.
Even if I not live here for 20 years.
Yes. Whether it's good or bad, I mean, that can be debated. But in the current draft, we felt that it was necessary
the 2020 draft said you must live here for at least 3 years.
Yes.
Because you would have ordinarily known and be au fait with local affairs thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
But now you don't have to live here even more than 1 month. You can fly in from London as long as you are a Gambian and get elected and become president.
Exactly.
Well, in a way, people in the diaspora have been complaining that this dual citizenship and have that been dealt with here. By the way,
there's some.
Yes, this dual citizenship business that you cannot be a cabinet minister if you hold nationalities in Britain or American or any other country other than the Gambia. Has that been dealt with here?
I think qualifications of the minister has been touched, but I don't think they changed. They changed that. Yes.
So people in the diaspora still cannot, or holding dual citizenship still cannot be president or minister. So
under the current draft, it is still a person has to be a citizen of the Gambia and has a qualification. So on 2020, after the CRC reviewed, they made the minimum that you had to have a tertiary education and be able to speak English very well. They have changed that you don't need a tertiary education to be minister. You just need a senior secondary school education.
Senior secondary school?
Yes.
How above that?
You just need senior secondary school.
Yes, if you get that.
Yes, so they have reduced the qualification.
They have reduced the qualification to become minister.
Yes. Also in 2020, we had said that you need not less than 8 years work experience. They have removed that. So the qualification for minister has
been dropped. So somebody can graduate from Nusrat High School or Nusrat Senior Secondary today and become minister tomorrow.
Yes.
It doesn't need experience.
No.
It doesn't need any more tertiary education.
No.
Maybe somebody can argue that this is good because somebody can come from secondary school and be, a better minister than somebody who'd been to Oxford with a PhD.
Well, so again, it's up to the Gambian people. But in 2020, the CRC draft report had showed the justification why after surveying the country, speaking with the people, consulting, the majority of Gambians wanted to have some minimum qualification.
There's a need for higher education.
Exactly. Okay. So if you're going to change that, I think we
should consult the people.
Yes, and we deserve a memorandum to say what study they have done, or what the disadvantage was of that. Then, now still coming back to the presidential qualification, they have removed the need for 3 years residency.
Yes.
In 2020, we had also had there was a clause there that said the nominee should submit a medical report showing that they were of sound mind.
Oh,
that is removed.
That's removed.
Yes.
So anybody with Joe Biden like problems can be elected.
Well, that is what they propose exactly.
So we don't need to. We cannot now insist that the president must be mentally sound and physically sound.
Not under the.
They remove that.
They remove that.
That's interesting.
It is.
Every lunatic just break away from lunatic asylum can come and just be elected.
Well, it's very strange. It's a very strange thing to remove.
Okay.
But also in 2020, the draft had a minimum education criteria for president, that the person had to have an undergraduate degree. They have removed that also.
The 20-year undergraduate at least.
Yes.
I see. So now the president. Well, maybe that can be argued to be positive because a good president may not be a degree holder. Somebody can be very smart, yet he is not a degree holder. And if you insist on degree, you might be unfair to that person.
Yes, well, it's for each Gambian to decide what they want as far as that is concerned. There's definitely benefits, and there are people who are very, very dynamic and able who don't have degrees.
Yeah, who don't have degrees,
yes. Okay. My only question is about process. Oh, I understand why the CRC included this, and there's a detailed
How did they justify it?
They had done a survey, and they had face-to-face interviews, they had received submissions, and the majority of the Gambians felt that they needed to be this minimum education criteria. Okay. And the report is there, as I said, 200 and something pages, to look at every area that they had introduced and why. But now we don't know what, well, we know that this is what the executive wants, but there needs to be an explanatory note to understand why. But anyway, we'll leave that opinion.
Yeah. Okay.
Then also, in the 2020 draft, if you submit a false declaration of your assets to the IEC, to the Anti-Corruption Commission, yes. So, for example, you mislead the Anti-Corruption Commission, you hide some properties, or you don't declare your income.
Yes, you under-declare.
That can disqualify you. If that is found subsequently, it can disqualify, even after you are elected, it can disqualify you.
From presidential candidate downwards?
For presidential candidate, yes. They have removed that. So essentially, you can make a false.
So anybody can come and say, even if you own 100 property and said, I only have one, and now you will not be accountable if it is found to be false.
Exactly.
Wow, that is definitely that reduces the mechanism to check the integrity of people who are aspiring to become our leaders?
Well, basically, and this is why some of these changes are a bit embarrassing, because it's very hard to explain why you feel that the obligation of a person who wants to be president to frankly and openly, transparently disclose their assets, why you feel that should be taken out.
Oh, yeah.
It's very hard to explain.
It's a morally, yes. It raises moral questions.
And this document will be seen by the whole world.
By the whole world, international donors who have put a lot of resources or trust in the process. So already I got a feeling that the government seems to have dropped their guard in terms of enforcing democratic and transparency, in this through these drafts. But I think there are even more interesting changes ahead.
Yes. So I have already spoken about ministers.
Ministers, yeah.
Yes, the need to disclose your assets, that is now reduced. You only need to disclose your assets before, but you no longer need to disclose your assets after you leave.
After you leave office. So anybody can go into office, amass wealth, either in the right way or the wrong way, and at the end of it, you have no accountability.
Exactly. So you don't need to disclose your business interest after you have
left office.
Yes. Now
so you seem to protect, even government officials or ministers who might have engaged in corruption. Now with this, when this is passed, they don't have any question to answer anymore.
Exactly.
Wow,
exactly.
Well, that's interesting.
And then also in the 2020 draft, it restricted ministers or the vice president from establishing charities or engaging in other organizations while you were minister. Because they wanted to, and this is what the report said, that the Gambians wanted people to focus on their ministerial portfolios and not be engaged in other activities.
In sideline issues.
Yes, particularly to establish charities and so on. So that has been removed. So while you're minister, you can, what they want is for you to be able to engage in these activities.
So you can even own charities, or you can own other things.
Yes. So that also is a change that they have introduced.
This is interesting.
Yes. Then also, as you know, the president has immunity during his term of office.
Yes.
Even now, the president cannot be held criminally liable or liable under civil law for
his decisions.
Yes, while he was in office. Yes. There's an exception there, but generally that is the rule.
Okay.
Under the 2020 draft, the National Assembly could pass a law that could then remove the presidential immunity.
Okay.
So they have changed that in the draft to increase the threshold in the National Assembly to 2/3. Meaning the National Assembly cannot just pass a law; they have to vote by
have two-thirds to be able to remove an immunity
of the president. Yes.
To impeach the president.
Or pass a law to remove the immunity of the president.
It has now to. But that seems to be a positive thing, is it?
No. So if
you're trying to say that in the past, just simple majority, you can remove the immunity of the president.
Yes, and
now it has to be 2/3. Okay, protect the president more. I see your point now.
Yes,
I see. Yes, so the law seems to protect the president more.
Yes.
Okay. So I see the point. So it means now that it has disarmed the assembly in some point by putting a higher threshold that they must reach to be able to do these kind of things. So it kind of protect the president more.
Well, I mean,
yeah, sure.
One can look at it carefully. I'm just looking at it now to make sure that I am not mistaken. But the change they have introduced is that the National Assembly has to have a 2/3 majority to remove any immunity.
But under the 2020 draft, it's just a simple majority.
Well, under the 2020 draft, it said the immunity granted to the president shall not, after the president leaves office, extend to any offense the president committed during his term in office.
So even if he leaves office, he shouldn't still be followed for things that he might have done during.
Yes. So maybe they have reduced the immunity. But as I said, more people will have an opportunity. I don't want to confuse the public.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes. So let's just say they have made a change there, and people will look at it in more detail.
I see.
Then you have the vacancy in the office of the president. Yes. So if the president should unfortunately die, or his office becomes disabled, or resign, or
resign,
yes. Under the 2020 draft, it is the vice president that takes over And if the vice president is not available, it is the speaker that takes over for a period of 3 months while the IEC conducts an election.
Elections, yes.
If the speaker is not available, the chief justice would then take over as acting president, and the IEC would conduct an election.
Elections, yeah.
Unless it was within 3 months of an election, in which case the election would just continue.
Just continue.
Yes.
Okay.
Under this draft, they have changed it that if the president is not available for these reasons, whether it's the vice president first, or the speaker, if he's not available, or the chief justice, they will continue in power for the rest of the term.
Wow, this is very important.
Yes, so there will not be an election. They will just continue in power for the term.
This is a fundamental change. Let's go over this.
Yeah.
If President Barrow should resign now,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
In the past or under the 2020, even now, I think even under the 1997 Constitution, there should be an election within 90 days.
Yes.
But this new draft is saying that there does not need to be any election.
Yes. The term
So,
continues.
whoever becomes the new leader can go up to the end of the term.
Yes.
Wow. So this is fundamental. I mean, this is perhaps the fundamental change, one of the most fundamental changes we have in the system.
Yes, because it takes away the power of the people to choose their leader.
To choose an elected leader.
Yes.
Much sooner than they will wish.
Yes.
Now they will have to live with okay, this happens I think this happened in the British governance system. Once a party comes to power, the prime minister is gone. His successor can go until the term of the party or the mandate ends.
Yes.
That's obtainable in Britain. But here it is fundamental. I mean, it has, like you said, it has robbed the people of the opportunity to choose their leader within 90 days.
Yes.
Now they have to live with whatever leaders succeeds the elected president.
Correct.
In this case, should Barrow resign now, Mohamed Jallow
Yes.
will become president until Barrow's term ends.
Correct.
Okay. In this case also, if Barrow is elected in 2026, that is if he ever runs, I don't know where he will run.
Yes.
But he is elected in 2026, or maybe another man is elected 2026, that man can resign the following year. And the person he is grooming can take over from the same party. And Gambians will not have any choice but to stay for another 4 or 5 years before they can change.
Correct.
Come on, that really robbed the people of opportunity to elect their leader sooner than they would, too later than they would prefer.
Yes. So
that's fundamental.
Yes, that's a fundamental change. Then you have impeachment of the president. Impeachment is removal of the president for bad behavior.
Yeah.
That was in the 2020 draft.
Another way of removing the president other than elections.
Yes.
But it has to be misconduct.
Yes. And the National Assembly can vote. So in 2020, if the National Assembly believes that the president has abused office, failed to adhere to the Constitution, violated the Constitution, there's some list of items. They can vote by 1/2, and then the process will start for his removal. Now they have changed that to give the president more protection. So for example, it's not just simple abuse of office. It has to be now a gross abuse of office.
Gross misconduct.
Yes. It's not just a violation of the Constitution.
So they kind of lessen the crime. If they have protection for the president.
Yes.
So if in the past or under 2020 the crime that can make him impeachable is no longer, it has to be bigger than that now.
Yes. So as lawyers we will say you have heightened the standard,
the threshold.
Yeah, the threshold. Yes.
Yeah.
So
protection for the president.
Yeah. So they have included the word gross for abuse of office, gross for violation of the Constitution, and gross misconduct.
I see.
So it's not just simple misconduct, simple abuse of office.
It has to be gross misconduct. Another protection for the president.
Yes. Secondly, it is now not just a vote by 1/2.
It has to be.
They have now increased it to
2/3 majority. So it's going to be more difficult to do that.
It will be more difficult to do that.
Another protection for the president.
Yes, and then finally, and this is one of the changes I noted that's very strange. Under the process of impeachment in 2020, the National Assembly votes by half. They submit the resolution to the Speaker. the Speaker sends it to the Chief Justice, and the Chief Justice establishes a tribunal of judges. Now in 2020, that tribunal was going to be the Chief Justice, 3 other people holding high judicial office, so probably Supreme Court judges or Court of Appeal judges. 1 person who is a layman, who is not a judge. This was the tribunal that would then receive the vote, and then the president can then appear with a lawyer for that tribunal to decide whether the National Assembly resolution was valid before the decision would be taken, and it would then be sent back to the National Assembly. They have changed that tribunal. Now that tribunal, they have changed it from being 4 judges, Chief Justice plus 3 judicial officers of high office, and 1 layman. They have changed that.
So
it is now the Chief Justice, 1 representative of the Supreme Islamic Council, 1 representative of the Christian Council, 1 representative of the Medical and Dental Council, and 1 representative of the Gambia Chamber of Commerce. These are the people who would sit on a tribunal. Now, for me, this is a legal process. This is, if this would happen, it would be the most fundamental and serious legal process ever in the history of Gambia. You want judges, because the National Assembly will vote.
Yes.
It is for judges to determine, under the rules of natural justice, fair hearing, evidence, and so on, to determine whether the National Assembly have voted properly, whether indeed there is gross abuse of office and so on. These are lay people. The chairman of the Supreme Islamic Council, Medical Dental Council,
may not even know the issues.
Yes, they are lay people. So they have changed this tribunal. So the Chief Justice would be the only lawyer on that tribunal, basically. This is a very fundamental change to the process of impeachment, and really requires people to have a look at it, and we hear from the government why they believe this is necessary. Because under the process of impeachment, there's a democratic process, a political process, where 58 members of the National Assembly debate and decide. Then there's a legal process, because the president is one of 3 bodies, the executive is one of 3 bodies that control the country. So if the National Assembly decides, it goes to the Judiciary to confirm, and then it goes back to the National Assembly to implement. But if now the Judiciary, you take it from them, because again it is weakening the power of the Judiciary.
Since you put in people
and putting laymen there,
again
it is whittling down the separation of powers.
The head of the Chamber of Commerce. What has that to do with a process like impeaching the president?
Yes.
Supreme Islamic Council and Christian Council, what do they have to do with common law? They normally, perhaps maybe the Supreme Islamic Council might be more comfortable when it is a Sharia matter. So yes, you have said this is bringing more and more protection to the president, making it more and more difficult to make him accountable to misconduct. Basically, that's what it is. Okay, that's interesting. So it makes it impeaching the president far more difficult.
Yes, it makes it more difficult, and it subjects it to a process that is not consistent with the constitutional. Exactly.
So, in fact, from what we have covered, one can safely say that whereas the 2020 draft constitution actually provided far more goodies in terms of liberty, protection, liberty, and accountability, this one is eroding most of the gains that would have been achieved under that constitution.
You would be right to say that. Another change also is the salary and allowance of the president.
Wow.
Now, under the 2020 draft, a president who since leaving office is convicted of a crime, of an offense related to when he was in office, that person would no longer receive a salary.
Okay, if the president, after coming out of office, is convicted for what he might have done while in office, that person should not have salary.
Under the proposed draft, yes. Now they have removed the portion that says while he was in office. So one can say it's a good thing, one can say it's a bad thing. But basically, if you leave office and you are convicted of a crime, you will not receive a salary. But mainly the crimes would be related to while you were in office, for which you have immunity, and now they have protected you
So another protection for the president.
Yes. Another thing also is that if a commission of inquiry finds that you have abused office or had acted corruptly, your salary would stop. So if an ex-president was subjected to a commission of inquiry, and then the commission of inquiry finds that you had abused office or had been corrupt, then your salary would stop and would not come. That has been removed. So you can be an ex-president, be found by a commission of inquiry to have been corrupt,
and continue to
your salary would still continue to come. So they have removed that portion also.
Oh, that's interesting.
So
let's come to the third term before we run out. The term limit before we run out, because there's a lot of talk about it now.
Yes.
Okay. Under the 2020 draft constitution, in fact, one of the most contentious issue at the time was, it says that if and when that constitution comes to effect, that very day, because in September 2020, that very day would have counted as a first term of the sitting president.
Yes.
That would have been 2020. It would have been recognized as the first term of President Barrow.
Yes.
But cabinet position paper I saw said that would be discriminatory to the sitting president. It could have been President Barrow or anybody. The language was that is discriminatory to the sitting president. So, even though they said the president is committed to term limit, but they felt that would be discriminatory for him. So they brought it back now. And it looks like now they are happy. Now, in 2024, they are happy that it can pass like it is, because it would mean that this term is the one that's considered to be his first term, when actually, as a human being, Barrow had served 2 terms. So that's what people are trying to analyze. What has changed, if there is any?
Yes. So I'll just give you my analysis. And I think what have they changed? Let's start from there. There is a 2-term limit that is still there, but they have changed that portion that said the current president, the current term shall be his first.
They've changed that.
They've changed that.
So
they have removed it. So now there's just a 2-term limit.
I see.
I think they made a mistake. Yes. Because, and this is law, another lawyer can come and sit here and have another interpretation. That is normal. My interpretation is that under this draft, they made a mistake in the language, and President Barrow would be disqualified from running after 2026.
After 2026?
He cannot run in 2026.
But maybe that meets with his ambition, and his ambition might just be to run for 2026.
No, he cannot run for 2026.
He cannot run for 2026.
So that's why I think...
And that's important. I thought you mentioned 2031. He may not be running.
No, so that's why...
So the language here could be interpreted. He may be disqualified from running in 2026.
Yes, because the language now says a person shall be elected to... A person is elected to be president for a term of 5 years, and for not more than 2 terms, whether consecutive or not. It means any person can only be president for 2 5-year terms.
Yes.
Now, remember the beginning of our conversation. I had said whenever you are passing a law, and that law will affect somebody who is already engaged in an activity which you are now trying to regulate.
Yes.
You must have what we call a transitional provision
to explain,
to deal with that person, because there is a transition where you are changing a situation from one condition to another. That is why in 2020 they were going to introduce a term limit, because President Barrow currently he can run, he's entitled to run as many times as he wants.
Under the 1997.
Correct. But in 2020 they were going to create a term limit. And this is the problem in Senegal, this is the problem in many African countries. If you're establishing the term limit, when do you start counting?
Yeah, that's the problem.
So that is why in 2020 they said, well, currently there is a person in office, that person's current term will be considered to be his first, and the language is notwithstanding any rule of interpretation or rule of construction.
Yes.
He can run for one more term, which will be his final term.
Yes.
So it was very clear there will be a term limit.
Yeah.
There is no confusion.
Yes.
His Excellency can run from 2021 for a period of 5 years.
Yes.
Now, when you remove that transitional provision, it is totally deleted.
Okay.
And you just say there is a 2-term limit. My interpretation is that if this constitution passes, and let's say June 2025, we have a new constitution, and he is the president of the Third Republic. In reality, he is the president of the Third Republic and would be in his second and final term. There is no transitional provision saying that, well, this is his first term, he can run another one. So I don't know whether it's intentional or they made a mistake. Another lawyer will sit here and say, well...
So you mean if it does pass in 2025, they can argue that that term will be considered his first. Why would you think they would know that term cannot be considered his first?
No, I will argue. So what I can bet you is that someone will file a case in the Supreme Court to ask for interpretation as it regards President Barrow. How I read it is that no man or woman shall be president for more than 10 years. If this new constitution passes, a man in the person of His Excellency President Barrow would have been in power for 10 years, and therefore under this new constitution cannot run again. Another person will interpret it to say, no. Time starts now.
Yes.
He can now run for 2 5-year terms of 10, meaning he can run from 2026 to 2036. But how is that resolved under our law? We would go to the Supreme Court. And I think with this draft, you create a situation where the fate of the president, if he wants to run again, will be determined by the Supreme Court. Because you're creating a situation where there is room for interpretation. And that is why I think it should have been clearer. If the current incumbent wants to run again, they should have created a transitional provision, allowing him to run once or 2 terms, to say that his current term will not count. But if you leave it silent, part of the population will say, he's done 10 years, that's what the Constitution says. We are not allowing him to do more than 10 years.
So as it is now, the Constitution basically saying that anybody who did 2 terms should go.
Yes.
And Barrow would have done 2 terms by the time this Constitution will pass.
Yes. But
then another person can argue that no, his first term starts when the Constitution was passed.
Correct.
So this is why you are suggesting maybe if his ambition was to contest in 2026, his drafters probably made a mistake there by leaving it in this ambiguous way.
Yes, it is ambiguous. And I'm not sure whether that is the intention. So probably something that they should...
Well, that's not consistent with all the intentions we suspected with the changes over there. So it could be a mistake on the part of the people who drafted it.
Exactly.
By leaving it ambiguous.
But that creates a situation for the incumbent.
Oh, I see.
Yes,
I see.
Then there's other discrepancies again. And I think we're almost at
we're at the tail end. Yes. But,
you are aware of the position of Director of Public Prosecution?
Yes, the DPP. Has it just been filled? It was vacant for a long time, but not long ago it was filled.
Yes. So under the 2020 draft, the DPP is supposed to be independent.
Okay.
Once he is appointed, he has a right to take over cases from the Anti-Corruption Commission. He cannot just be removed from office like that. There has to be a process. In the new 2024 draft, the position of DPP is reduced. It's now under the Attorney General, who determines the cases who determines whether he will take on Anti-Corruption Commission cases, and who determines his appointment. So
I see that the people whoever is drafting this law is very much afraid of the anti-corruption commission.
Yes.
By disarming it in many ways. Yes. So you could see an attempt to protect people from the scrutiny of the anti-corruption commission.
That's obvious.
Yeah, that's very obvious in all the things we have gone through.
Yes.
So now the DPP cannot independently decide on a case referred to it from the anti-corruption commission now.
No.
The Attorney General must decide for that.
Yes.
So that means the DPP's independence is reduced.
Yes.
Again, to protect people who might be affected by the anti-corruption commission.
Yes.
Wow. Well, that is another not a good point for somebody who wants to be transparent, actually.
Yes. And another group of people whose powers are reduced is the National Assembly members.
Wow. Yes. National Assembly members.
Yes.
You can bet that will bring a lot of uproar.
So
how are their powers reduced? Yeah, in which aspect?
So
in what aspect?
You recall the requirement that ministers, the requirement that ministers submit a declaration of the assets to the Anti-Corruption Commission.
Yeah, you said their spouses should not be there.
Yes, so they have reduced the obligation for ministers and the vice president.
Yes.
And even the president. They have reduced that obligation.
Yeah.
They have created that obligation for the judges, for the judiciary.
Yes.
They have now also created it for the National Assembly.
Oh, really?
So all National Assembly members must disclose all their assets after they leave office.
All the National Assembly members?
Yeah.
All their assets after they leave office?
Yes.
Okay.
So that to the Anti-Corruption Commission.
Yes.
So that, of course, to investigate and confirm whether they have increased their wealth, from what sources, exactly.
Yes.
So that can be considered to be a good thing, because after all, if ministers were supposed to do it, then National Assembly members can do it. The problem you have now is ministers are protected; they don't have to do that anymore. Judges have to do it, and National Assembly members. So
now the ministers will not declare their assets to the anti-corruption commission.
They will declare before they go,
but not after. But the judges will have to do it before and after.
Yes.
And National Assembly members have to do it before after.
Yes.
So the executive protect itself, and leave the judiciary and the legislature in the hands of the anti-corruption.
Well,
that's what it means. That's what it means. So you can expect an uproar in the assembly if they get the similar interpretation, of course.
Yes, it's
interesting.
It's very strange.
It's very strange.
Yes.
Then you can bet there will be resistance from National Assembly members. Why do you protect yourself and leave us under the jaws of the anti-corruption commission?
Then another issue is that the National Assembly members. So currently, as you know, our elections are the presidential election occurs, then the National Assembly election occurs, I think, a year later.
No, 5 months later.
4 months later, yes.
Yeah, 4 or 5 months.
4 months later. So under the 2020 draft, it was supposed to be on the same day.
Yes, which made a lot of sense.
Yes, they have now separated it. So it will still be the same 4 months after the presidential election.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, the justification I remember under the 2020 draft was, one, it will kill voter apathy.
Yes.
And there will not be influence of the elected, the eventual president-elect, may have influence, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Over the National Assembly elections.
Yes.
So in order to stop that, they want to hold them on the same day, as it used to be actually in the latter part of the Jawara regime.
Yes.
The elections were held on the same day. You go elect the president here, go elect Parliamentary in the same polling station. So one would have thought that they would have loved elections to be held in the same day, but they kept the separation.
They kept
it separated.
Yes. Then
that is not quite. That's not helping in terms of killing voter apathy, and also stopping the eventual president-elect from influencing parliamentary elections.
Yes.
So not 100% democratic, as you would have thought. Yes.
So another thing that's interesting for me is that in the National Assembly you have nominated members.
Yes.
And
5 of them, is it?
Correct. Then famously you had the case of Yakumba Jaite.
Who the president wants to remove, but the law said no. You cannot remove. Yeah.
So they're now changing that in the constitution. So they're going to give the president expressly power to recall nominated members.
Oh, you see, another excessive powers to the president. Whoever drafted this actually is doing the bidding of the president. You can safely say that. So now the president can have no restriction in recalling a nominated member of parliament. So he can nominate you, and when you started becoming a mad dog, going after your master, he can remove you.
That's
basically what he said.
It's a bit strange. It's a bit strange.
Whoever drafted is really empowering the president so much that, in fact, almost turning to me a semi-autocratic leader, protecting him or her from everything. There we go. So it basically means that he can nominate and fire a nominated member of parliament.
Yes. Yes. Then also even the sessions of the National Assembly. Under the draft, the clerk of the National Assembly will publish when the sessions will start. The National Assembly has the autonomy to decide when it will sit, when its sessions will commence, that for their calendar. So under the proposed draft, the clerk must now consult with the president before determining publishing the sessions in the Gazette.
So you see, you said even the powers of the assembly is reduced. This is another form of reducing the powers.
Yes.
So the clerk cannot now schedule the sessions without consulting the president.
Correct.
The president now must influence when are you going to what are you going to discuss and whatever time.
Yes. So in fact, even on that question of changing certain things in the National Assembly, even the State of the Nation address. Under the draft 2020, the National Assembly, the State of the Nation should be in the beginning of the year, in the commencement of the year, and not later than April. They have now changed that so that it can be at any time. But also, when the special sitting of the National Assembly occurs, the president can send a vice president.
Extraordinary sitting. He can send a vice president.
But now he can send any minister.
And assembly people actually want the president himself to become.
Exactly. So rather than...
Now even the vice president, if he feels that's too senior, he can send somebody else.
Yes. So they have, of course, the value of sending the vice president is that he would have a clearer view of the whole executive branch. A minister is
just one
sectoral,
aspect of it.
Obviously. So they've changed certain aspects of the National Assembly to make it more convenient and protect the president. Exactly. So that's something people also have to look at.
People should have to understand that. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
Another thing is also the Select Committee on Finance under the proposed draft 2020 is the minority leader that is supposed to chair that committee.
Minority leader.
They have removed that.
That is what exists now, isn't it?
Yes, but they have removed that.
Currently it's Alaji Dabo. Alaji S. Dabo.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
So that is changed also.
So now who will it? Majority leader?
Well, I suppose the speaker will decide, or there will be a vote. But they have changed that.
And the provision that allows minority leader is to make sure that at least
checks and balances.
Exactly. They've removed that now.
That's also removed.
That's another reduction of parliamentary powers.
Exactly. Yes. Then even when we come to now principles of land governance. Now this is
very pertinent now in this day.
And I'm very surprised at the changes that are made.
Okay.
So there's a chapter called, it used to be chapter 14, Land, Environment and Natural Resources. And it used to talk about the principles of land, environment and national resource policy, what the government has to consider. Now, I'll just read a bit. Land, environment and natural resources shall be held, used and managed in a manner that is responsible, efficient, productive, sustainable, in accordance with the following principles. Now, one of those principles used to be sound conservation and protection of ecologically sensitive areas. That's of course very important.
Yes,
that is removed.
That's removed.
Yes, that's removed.
So let's have it again. Under the 2020 draft, it says ecologically sensitive.
Yes.
And
the policy for land governance should include sound conservation and protection of ecologically sensitive areas.
So that means my village at here, where we have a Tanje Bird Reserve next to Burfoot.
Yes.
We have a forest they call Karanti. We treasure these places to be preserved, as a bird sanctuary and protect forest cover for. So you mean, in the absence of this sound management, the government can walk into there and degassette it for some project?
Yes, not so dramatic, but basically, they don't have to consider conservation in the policy, in land policy.
So under this draft, some reserve wildlife conserved areas may end up becoming real estate. So government approved layout, layout zones.
Well, it's removed from the policy, so potentially. So actually,
potentially, there's no restriction anymore now. They're not constrained by anything now.
Yes. So anyway, governments can interpret it how they want.
This is another spot of border.
Yes. So one should see that, why is it removed? The government should explain. Maybe they have a protection somewhere else. But clearly for me, looking at the document, when I see something so fundamental being removed without an explanatory note, I can only be very concerned. They've also removed another
so it
consideration.
basically gives the government a free hand to move into any reserve park and do whatever it feels.
Well, I'm trying not to say.
When the law is not there, what do you expect?
Yes.
Okay.
Another issue is also in land policy. Under the 2020 draft, there was the consideration of elimination of discrimination in laws, customs, and practices to land interest based on gender. So there was a protection that if there is a custom or practice that is discriminating someone on a land matter because of their gender, it should be the government's policy to eliminate that kind of custom. Yes, they have removed that. So it means the government will not consider customs and practices that discriminate against women. So that is very clear that they've removed it.
Interesting.
Then also certain commissions were supposed to be set up. In the 2020 commission, there was going to be a land and environmental and natural resources commission. They've removed that. So there will no longer be a land, environment and natural resources commission, at least in the constitution. Yeah, so that they've also removed the teacher service commission. There was going to be a teacher service commission.
Under the 2020 constitution.
That's gone.
Teacher service. What was to be the role of that teacher service commission?
I can find it.
It's important that we know what has been envisaged for the welfare of teachers and if it has been removed, why?
Yeah, so there was going to be the establishment of the following commissions: Public Service Commission, Teacher Service Commission, Health Service Commission. So the Teachers and Health Service Commission is now removed.
Removed?
Yeah.
What were supposed to be their role?
I cannot see it.
Were they not supposed to be perhaps look into the welfare or
so just like the
benefits and just like the Judicial Service Commission?
Exactly.
I see. So if that is removed, then they are left to the whims and caprices of the minister.
So they will still remain in the Public Services Commission.
Public Service Commission.
So the Teacher Service Commission was to liaise with relevant institutions and authorities with respect to the development of educational curricula, ensure appropriate registration of teachers, review standards of education and training of persons entering the teaching service, and review the demand and supply for teachers. So they have removed that.
Abolished that commission.
Yes. So I don't know whether they feel it's handled adequately elsewhere.
Maybe they felt it's duplicated.
Exactly.
Okay.
So what you need to realize about a constitution is that it is the supreme law of the land. It's said all the time.
Yes. So if you remove things from there, you are making them less significant.
Yes, in one way. In another way also is National Assembly passes laws. So whenever the government feels there's a need, people see there's a need, we pass a law. But it's 58 people passing a law. And in some sense, it's a dilution of the sovereign will of the people. So whenever you have a chance for a referendum where all of us as Gambians have to come out, by the time you get to that stage, usually we look at those things that are so fundamental to us that we don't want to leave it to 58 people.
58 people.
We want it protected in the constitution.
Entrenched clause.
And some of them will be entrenched clause, meaning even in the future, the National Assembly cannot amend that portion of the constitution. So when you delete
them from there,
it sends a very big signal.
You make it vulnerable for anybody to.
Exactly. So basically, this is just me in 3 days reviewing the constitution.
You have covered fundamentally so many areas, and I think your observations are on the spot. I have the whole book in front of me, and in the coming days or so, we will try to reproduce them in and I know every newspaper will do that so that people can understand. But you have done great justice in making our viewers understand in the layman's language some of the changes they made. But have they added anything that's also worthy of taking home?
So certain things have been added that I did not.
Can we summarize them? What do they add, and in what spirit? Which spirit? Is it the spirit of glorifying democracy or reducing our democratic gains as envisioned in the old draft?
So generally, there's a section connected to enforcement of the Constitution that provides for how a person can take action through the Supreme Court to enforce the Constitution, or if your fundamental rights and freedoms are affected, how you can the process you should go through in the judiciary to do that. Now they've clarified it and made it more specific. All the new additions that I have seen, which are very few, it's basically, and some are good, it's basically where there is let's say a typographical error, or let's say there is a lack of clarity in something they've added, but it's not anything of substance. We have discussed certain areas where perhaps it's a good thing, declaration by some public officials and not others. But what I have seen after reviewing this constitution is that let's say 90% of the effort was based on reduction and deletion of certain things which people may find fundamental, and I did not see something new added. Because remember, in 2020, the work that was done and the creation of this constitution, I don't think it's possible, but I don't think we have the resources to replicate that kind of the high level of capacity and resources, personnel that were brought together, and I don't think they did that in this case. So the 2020 really reflected the will of the people, and I think to a large extent the things that they were not happy with is what they wanted to reduce. So to answer your question, there were very little additions and mainly deletions, and I think to avoid because in my view this would fail very likely. Because
with all what you've highlighted, I mean, the general public or those stakeholders knows all these, and they've got to know about all these changes. There's likely to be disagreements all over.
Yes, and that is not the constitutional building process. The constitutional building process, by the time you present a document to the people, you should have done massive consultation and find what are the areas of agreement generally, and present all those areas of agreement together, and then present the document to the people. If you present something without explaining, naturally people will push back, and that would make the process fail. And that is why the process is as important as the document itself. There should be transparency, there should be consultation and feedback. But without that, even if you present a good document, people will just not feel part of the process. Remember, you need...
I already had civil society saying they have not been consulted, unlike the case with the 2020 draft.
Exactly, and what you're going to have is that by the time it gets to the National Assembly, you need 75% at 2 readings, or even 3 readings. It's a very high threshold.
And then referendum, which said 75.
And a referendum is a very, very high threshold. You need 50% of Gambians to come out,
and 75%.
And you need 75%. Yes. So even if there's a stubborn minority, it will not pass.
It will not pass.
Yes. So my advice would just be that if it's a controversial process from the beginning, it has failed. We all as Gambians must come out of the constitution building process satisfied that we have contributed our vote to building a future for our people, and a document that reflects our values. And if a document looks like it reflects the interest of a few people, and it looks too short term and not long term, even the people in government today will be one day out of government, and they will regret.
They will regret putting all these things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's something that has to be selfless, and it has to be something that we all see each other. Yeah. But as I see it now, it's unfortunate.
And unfortunate, as one analyst said, that, and it is this government that everybody's looking up to set examples of good governance. That is, like you said, being selfless in whatever they are doing, so that the future generation of governments will be compelled, to, govern within what has been already established. For example, this good document. But instead, what we have seen, and most analysts agree, is that we've seen that this government is continuing to rather reduce the freedoms of the people in ensuring accountability and checking their powers.
Yes, and it's, in some cases, it's a bit embarrassing to see a chapter called Leadership and Integrity, and you delete it.
Yeah.
Maybe you've deleted it because you have expectations that those values are covered somewhere else.
Yeah.
But you have to explain to the people. But when people see this document and see that chapter is deleted, and that chapter wasn't just sitting there, it came there through a long period of review, feedback, consultation, and the people wanted to have this there because that chapter talks about transparency, honesty, public officials, even if you have a contract with government, how you should behave because you are working for the public trust. If you delete that chapter and just put the document out there on Facebook or whatnot, or the internet, without an explanation, by the time you get to your explanation, some people will look at this document and find it embarrassing that a government would in 2024 present a document that was so backward looking instead of forward looking. So I think the government should take steps to clarify so that we can all approach this, because as you see, people are already starting.
Oh yeah, I read it, dozens and dozens of analysis, and none of them, to say the least, agrees with the changes that have happened. Well, lawyer Aziz, Abdul Bensouda, thank you very much for being on the Brunch, and all of you over there for following us in these 2 hours. There will be many more lawyers with analysis of the draft constitution 2024 on the Brunch in subsequent programs. Until then, loving charm, wishing you have a great weekend. Goodbye for now.
Islamic microfinance is becoming an increasingly popular mechanism for poverty alleviation, especially for developing countries around the world. This microfinance service adheres to the principles of Islam as a form of social responsibility. Yona Islamic Microfinance is the Islamic microfinance of choice in the Gambia, trustworthy and reliable. At Yona Islamic Microfinance, we provide savings products, current accounts, financing products in conformity with Islam. In addition, Yona Islamic Microfinance also offers local and international remittances, takaful fund, management of zakat, management of awqaf, trading and investment, and building of strategic partnerships to bring financial services to the doorstep of the poor with donor projects, madrasas, youth organizations, women groups, and farmer organizations. Make a choice with Yona Islamic Microfinance today. For more information on Yona Islamic Microfinance, call 377-2151 or 9832-151, or visit Yona head office at Tipa Garage, Bakote, or visit any Yona branch located countrywide near you.
Planning to have an uninterrupted electricity and water supply from solar energy in the Gambia and beyond? Worry no more, because Solar Enterprise will provide you with the solutions at reasonable cost. We have experienced personnel who can install and advise you about your electricity and water supply with a warranty period. We have good quality solar products from North America and Europe. We provide services and sell products to individuals, organizations, institutions, private offices, communities, and government. These products are solar panels, batteries, charge controllers, inverters, water pump, water heaters, freezers, submersible pumps, and general solar accessories. Visit our stores at 48 Karaba Avenue and Brusubi Highway, or you can call us on 7657 479 980-8483, 340-9400 or 635-9906.
Jamano Money Transfer Bureau de Change, your go-to option when it comes to money transfer. With Jamano, you can send money from anywhere in the world to your family and loved ones in the Gambia and be sure the funds will be delivered to them within the shortest time possible. For your convenience, funds sent through Jamano Money Transfer can be picked from all the banks and multiple other financial institutions, including Ajib Bank, Trust Bank, GT Bank, Mega Bank, Basic Bank, Reliance Financial Services, and Approved Services. Visit our head office at Bruceby opposite AfricMed next to Trust Bank Limited or email us at info@jamanomt.com. You can as well call us on 310-3050 or 310-3051 or yet still 733-0688. Our opening hours are 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday to Saturday and 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Sunday. Jamano Money Transfer, your most trusted money transfer service where customer satisfaction is paramount. When you think of a simple, fast, and reliable money transfer, think Jamano Money Transfer.
I get it.
Mbijan aganyani.
Albaka.
Mbaka important.
Yo, nga transfer la sto.
Ya transfer la sto.
Ha, code nyingi.
Okay. Nsila ID soto.
Sa soto. Sorry. I get it.
Mbijan bro.
Albaka.
Mbaka.
Bara alla service o tariaka.
Mbale.
Mo ki janna nun kunu bara tariaka.
Jannom yona forest de bureau. Gambia tonkon na no mbali ya bere. Birim koyna fo katon.
Bari si kodo kino katon ni fo bolon blabe ko.
56 branches mola soto Gambia jam.
Ha?
Gambia kono ani Gambia bantala bankol. Nka kodo kiya bere. Kodo sifa fo falindiro fo nyaadi lafta memmen na kodi topoto nin kodi maraw. Jannom number 1 ti nyonta. Andum fana nata anoda enterprise sotale. Wolam nyindi ko domorol fana kol fana be firale le dadi ma ni domorol ni fana beteata. Gambia dawda yalo nga kumfa kendol sotale je.
Wo moyo diat.
Apelenta
Ni wo ka ni na lafta nyelen kendo le bina.
Yalo bukani la ko la baraka ba.
Yalo ndel chosano lo.
Abaraka.